Got to get it in. Does to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it.
We're here to Fuel Rockets News. It's the Rockets Fuel podcast presented by the Believe Network and sponsored by Bet Online. Of course, I am your host, Lashard Binkley. You can always find me on Twitter, at Binkley Hoops, and my written work over at Rockets on SI, which is part of Sports Illustrated. And of course, today we are here to talk about the Houston Rockets' huge 91-90 win over the Golden State Warriors. It ended a 15-game losing streak the Rockets had to the Golden State Warriors that hadn't beaten the Warriors since February of 2020. They haven't beaten the Steph Curry-led Warriors team since 2019. So there was a lot of streaks broken last night. Of course, the Rockets also, with the win, move on to Vegas for the semifinals against Oklahoma City Thunder. The time has been set for primetime ABC on Saturday at 7:30. So it was a lot of things that went into last night's win. That is a great thing for the Rockets. It was more than just, a regular season win. It also helped the Rockets still have a chance to win the tiebreaker because in one of these scheduled schedule quirks, they actually play Golden State 5 times this season, something you rarely, if ever, see a team playing someone outside of the division that many times. So with the extra game, the quarterfinal game, the Rockets actually do still play the Warriors 2 more times this season. So they have a chance to still win this season series, and that may go a long way with how tight the Western Conference is this season. So that's definitely something else to keep in mind. But of course, again, the big story was the Rockets' huge win. It didn't look good there for the last minute and a half, 2 minutes. The Rockets were down 5 or 6 points, but they were able to pull it out. And of course, I want to give a quick recap and give my 3 reasons why the Rockets were able to pull out this huge victory over the Golden State Warriors. And let's just get right into it. And the first reason was the Houston Rockets defense. It's been their calling card all season. They've been a top 3 defensive team all year long. They're number 2 in defensive rating. They've now held Golden State, even though the last game it was without Curry and Draymond Green, but they held Golden State to only 31% three-point shooting. They held Golden State without a basket for the last 3.5 minutes. They only scored 1 point in the last 3.5 minutes, and that was a big reason why they were able to come back late in the game after trailing by 5 or 6 points with a couple of minutes left in the game. Was they stifling defense? I mean, the defense was great the entire game. Outside of the second quarter, where they kind of slipped up a little bit in that second and third quarter, but the fourth quarter defense, some of the best defense I've seen the Rockets play in a long, long time. That's going back to the days of when they were winning 65 games in James Harden's prime. They play elite defense all the way from the starters to the bench. Of course, we saw them in times with that huge block on Steph Curry. We saw that elite defense in the fourth quarter. The Rockets forced 8 24-second shot clock violations, including an 8-second violation. That's how good the Rockets defense was last night. And that's what I've been saying in other podcasts. No matter how bad the offense is, and the offense still needs to get better. They still can't shoot to save their lives. But no matter how bad the offense is, they're pretty much in every single game because they play elite lockdown defense. And even though Steph Curry still had a decent shooting game, he has never had to work this hard against the Houston Rockets team to get shots off. The Rockets were trapping them all game long. I actually asked MA about that earlier in the pregame. I asked him, is that something that we might see more of in that game, was them trapping Steph Curry? Because the Rockets don't do a lot of trapping, but they do try to trap and get the ball out of the hands of players like John Morant and SGA and Anthony Edwards, and they did it again last night. And they did it really it was a real effective way to get the ball out of Steph Curry's hands. It actually forced 2 or 3 turnovers early because it kind of threw Golden State off of their game, and then Golden State tried to have him come more off ball, and the Rockets still did a great job of pushing him out towards the midcourt line and forcing him to give the ball up to where he only had 14 or 15 shots last night because they were forcing other people like Gary Payton II. He was getting the Terrence Mann treatment for most of the game, where they were forcing him to make those shots. And even though Jonathan Kuminga had a good game, you still rather him taking those shots instead of Steph Curry taking 20, 25 shots, because he's probably going to make 50% of those shots. So you want to force other people like him, like Draymond Green, to beat you. And that's exactly what the Rockets did. And that's exactly why their defense was just so elite last night. I can't talk about it enough. A lot of people may not be crazy about the 91-90 score, But at the same time, people have been complaining about there's no defense played in the NBA. That's not the case for the Houston Rockets. One thing you can guarantee is the Rockets are going to play elite defense more times than not. And more times than not, they're going to be in the game and have a chance of winning at the end like they did last night. The second reason is, pretty obvious, and it's pretty much a reason every single time I do these three reasons why the Rockets win a game is Alperen Sengun. Alperen Sengun had another great game. He had a double-double. He was all over the court. He was a one of the biggest reasons why they were able to contain Steph Curry, because they were trying to put Alperen Sengun in a lot of pick and rolls, and he was able to come out, help trap that pick and roll on Steph Curry, and he was really active. He moved his feet really well. He was able to get back into plays. He was able to help force Steph Curry way away from the basket and make him a passer instead of a shooter. And of course, you already know about his offense. When the Rockets were struggling, and they were struggling for most of the game, but especially in that fourth quarter, he was the guy they can go down to and get the shots that they needed. And that's another thing I actually asked Ime after the game was, how much of an impact or how big does it, it stand out now, knowing that you have a guy like Sengun that you can just dump the ball down to when you're struggling on the offensive end, when you can't make open threes. You can get the ball to Sengun and know that 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a really good shot. And this is what he said.
Not even more having a player like Alperen that you can get the ball down to and, he's going to get a good shot.
Yeah, I always say having a post threat is a really good insurance plan. Kind of settle everything down. They're bogging down the pick and rolls. They're taking away some actions, and you can always kind of go in there and know that he's going to draw the attention, get a decent shot, or find somebody an open look. And so, luxury to have for sure.
Especially because.
So you see there, and this is what he's been saying all year about Sengun, is that he is the calming force on that offensive end, to where he can get the ball, and like I said, he can get a good shot, especially when he's either going to get you a really good shot or they're going to double team him. And he's going to be able to get the ball out to open shooters. And hopefully, they made a few more in the second half. So eventually they started making some shots. But either way, you're going to get a good shot one way or another if you get the ball down to Alperen Sengun. Like I said, he also had 3 steals last night. And that kind of just lets you know how good his defense was all game. And kind of a quick side note on Alperen Sengun, I know that Steve Kerr was complaining after the game about the referees and that they should never call that foul they called for Jalen Green, even though he never actually says that it wasn't a foul. He just said they shouldn't call a foul. But even right before that play, and you're actually going to see it here. There's a play where when Steph Curry takes a shot over Dylan Brooks with under 10 seconds left and misses, the ball goes up. Sengun has great rebounding position. He forced Kevon Looney under the basket, but Kevon Looney grabs him by the shoulder and pretty much pulls him around. Basically, you would call that a holding call in the NFL, and it wasn't called, and that's the only reason why it was a scramble for the ball, because if Looney doesn't hold Sengun has an easy rebound. So it's kind of funny that the Warriors and their fans are kind of complaining about that foul call on Jalen Green, when in essence it should have never happened anyway, because Alperen Sengun had an easy rebound and it should have been a foul call, and he would have been the one going to the free throw line. So just kind of a quick note on that. But Alperen Sengun, like he's done all season long, he's been the best Rockets player overall. He's been the Rockets' best offensive weapon, and he was again last night in a really close, really low scoring, really hard fought game. You need guys like this, and Ime mentioned that this was a 90s type of game, and that's exactly what it was. And in the 90s, we know who dominated on the court. It was usually the center position. That's exactly what we saw last night. Sengun was the best player on the court for both teams last night, and he was definitely one of the reasons why the Rockets were able to pull out that victory. And the third and final reason the Rockets were able to pull out that victory is something I haven't said a lot, and a lot of people haven't said a lot about, is the Rockets crowd at Toyota Center. This is not a second straight game where this probably the loudest I've heard at Toyota Center since the James Harden days. Of course, they were going through the rebuild. They were losing 20 games in a row. It wasn't a lot of excitement around the Rockets. Even last season, they were better. They were, 500 team, but it was still, people were slow to come back to the Toyota Center. And a lot of times you would hear opposing fans a lot louder than what you would hear from the Rockets fans. And for once, especially last couple of games, the crowd has been great. And the crowd was a huge reason why I think it gave the Rockets kind of that motivation to kind of go out there and make those plays. Yes, the crowd doesn't actually, affect necessarily what goes on the court because they're not actually playing. But at the end of the day, especially with a young team like the Rockets have, and they thrive off of energy and they thrive off of, the environment. Having a crowd like that can only help the Rockets. And that was another reason why the Rockets were able to get that victory last night. And where everyone from MA to Alperen Sengun talked about that last night, and this is what they said.
It's a great feeling to get back to that and have a crowd like that, but it's more meaningful for the guys, obviously, and all the credit's due to them for buying in, accepting what we're trying to teach, and bring that professional approach every night. So to turn around, in a year or so, and then move on into this. Obviously, our goals are not just to make the NCAA tournaments, to get to the playoffs and do some damage there, but this is the first step. So
it's cracking in here. The fans been popping out. We've been doing our job, and they've been doing theirs. So, we got one of the best fan bases in the league. So, they just need to see us put some wins together.
That was great, I'll be honest. Usually when we play against Golden State, there's a lot of Golden State fans in the Toyota, but today I didn't see any. And that was just great. That's what we want to see, and we're going to bring this team to playoffs, and hopefully we see the crowd again like that.
So again, the Rockets crowd was a huge reason why the Rockets were able to pull out that victory. Jabari said it also. He said that he can't wait to get to the playoffs because he has a feeling this is how the playoffs is going to be. So definitely a shout out to the Rockets crowd. They showed up. It was pretty much a full, crowd, even though it was a Wednesday night. That's something you can never really say about a Rockets crowd. It's usually going to be empty seats, but for the most part, it was packed. They were loud. They were standing up. They were cheering. Some of the loudest boos I heard was when they introduced the Warriors at the beginning of the game. Again, something normally, when it's a superstar player on another team, you normally hear more cheers than boos when it comes to Toyota Center crowd. So that was definitely good to see last night. And that was another reason why the Rockets, the third reason why the Rockets were able to pull out that victory. Definitely wanted to say thank you to everybody that's continued to subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you're new here, definitely welcome in. As you go through and look through my channel, you'll see I have all types of different things. I have highlights, I have podcasts. I have every single interview, especially games that I'm able to attend. You're always going to have pre and post game from MA and all the players, even special events. The Rockets will have some holiday events coming up. I will definitely be out at those, definitely bring you all the footage from that. So as you see, we cover everything here on Rockets Fuel Podcast. So definitely appreciate the support, and definitely make sure you check out the next episode of the Rockets Fuel Podcast.